Well, this is certainly a change of scenery, to say the least. Hello everyone, I'm Papa Kenn and welcome to episode 78 of Discovering Doctor Who. I apologize if it sounds really echoey in here. Basically, what you see right now is going to be my new office when we get moved in here. Yes, I am currently in our new house that we have closed on and going to be moving into this weekend. And there'll be an announcement at the end of this video, I'll save it for that. But what I'm going to talk about right now is, and I apologize for the mispronunciation that is most likely going to occur, but the Rings of Akhaten. And this episode definitely took me by surprise. Whether that's a good surprise or a bad surprise, you'll find out in a little bit. But let's start with my favorite parts of the episode, starting with the singing. The singing in this episode was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The chorus, whenever the chorus kicked in, it was at its absolute peak as far as just absolute gorgeous music. But in addition, the two solo singers, I can't remember if the character had a name or not, but the guy that was singing to the grandfather, he had a really nice singing voice. And then even the little kid. Now I could tell that, you know, they definitely had her sing in a recording studio because she wasn't singing like that, you know, just on screen. But she had a really nice singing voice as well, especially for someone, I don't know how old she is or was at the time, but I mean, she had a really nice singing voice and just did really, really well. And that actually brings me to my second favorite part of this episode, which was Mary, the little girl. She, I don't know, it's like, she's one of those that, it's so hard to find a good actor when someone is that young. Or it's like, it's seemingly so anyway, because so often we have actors or little actresses around her age, or seemingly around her age, that, you know, they try, but they just don't really do that great of a job, at least on screen. She did a really good job. She gave a very believable performance. And yeah, I just found her to be a really enjoyable character overall. And once again, her singing was really good. Like, I hope that, you know, again, if that was really her singing the entire episode, she has a career in singing coming up when she gets a little bit older, if not already. Yeah, but yeah, a little bit too much gushing there. I move on to my third favorite part of this episode, which was the God of Akhaten. And I found the entire little mythos around this god to be really interesting. Starting with who we think is the grandfather or this god. And the Doctor ends up telling us that it's actually like a vampire of sorts. And we end up finding out like its scream wakes up the actual god. And then just the way that they displayed like I guess you could call it a face. It had sort of like a skull-like pattern to it. But when especially when the Doctor is facing the sun or whatever it was just absolutely brilliant and a really good effect. Now, we saw something similar when the 10th Doctor faced off against the creature that was the Beast, shall we say. And the graphics back then weren't that great. It's like, you know, you could definitely tell it was very, very low budget CGI. But this one, I mean, again, I'm not like a CGI or a graphics file or whatever the word would be, but the graphics on this one looked really good and really believable, and it led to a very effective scene, which I'm going to be hitting on here in a little bit, Well, actually, that's what I'm going to be hitting on next, because my fourth favorite part of this episode was the Doctor's offering. That entire segment, there were so many great things about that segment. The Doctor's speech, the singing, the graphics, the effects going on, it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm actually going to, talk about it a little bit more, so that's all I'm going to say for now. But that does bring us to my fifth and final favorite part of this episode, which is Clara's family and her offering. Now, starting in the very beginning of the episode, we have our introduction to Clara's parents. The two people that met by complete chance because the dad is kind of a klutz, and he got smacked in the face by this gigantic leaf, which is the leaf that Clara had in her book that we saw in the previous episode. And just the way that it worked with her offering, it's like, the leaf symbolized all those years that her mother didn't get to live. Her life was cut short, whether or not we find out if there was a significant, like, she died of anything significant. I don't know if it was, a disease like cancer or something like that, but we're told by Clara that, it's all the years that she didn't get to live, that it's the most important leaf in the world, because with that leaf, her parents never would have come together. And therefore, not exactly, but, her basically saying, it's like without this leaf, she would not exist, which, the Doctor is obviously still trying to find out. But then going back to all those years that her mother never had, the infinite possibilities, and that is what fed, those possibilities fed the creature, the parasite, the god. And I don't know, I really did love that idea. I love the aspect, and I didn't mark it down in the favorites, but the whole concept of things of value, like objects of value, or apparently even just seemingly ideas of value, and their monetary worth in this system. I found that so very interesting, so cool, to be completely honest. Now it's time to move on to my annoyances with the episode, which I did have a handful of. The first of which is the inconsistent TARDIS translation. Now, obviously the Doctor can understand all these people because he communicates with them in their own tongue, or barks, or whatever. But whereas usually, sometimes there have been creatures that appear on screen that we can't understand for whatever reason. But it seems like the entire planet almost, or everyone around them, with the exception of the more human creatures, there was no translation going on. There was no, we couldn't understand them, Clara couldn't understand them. I just found that to be really inconsistent. And yeah, it did lead to some humorous moments, it led to some funny things, but it was just really annoying because the TARDIS is supposed to be able to translate all languages. Yes, there is sometimes delay, but eventually it actually gets translated and we and the companion can understand them. So yeah, I just found that very, very strange and annoying. Now, second of all, actually, my second one I'm going to cross out because, I don't know, I might hit on that a little bit later or not, but I'll write it down here. But yeah, I don't really actually consider it an annoyance anymore now that I've thought about it. But my actual second annoyance with this episode was that the Doctor just conveniently disappeared. And seemingly literally disappeared, because Clara follows him very shortly after he walks out of the space they're both in, and all of a sudden he's just gone. He's nowhere to be seen. And, in other places where, like when the 10th Doctor was in the market with Donna, they never really... there was the moment where they separated, and obviously she went into the place where she had her palm read and all that crap happened, but he never just disappeared. He never just, like, you know, vanished. She saw where he was, and then she went in her own way. So yeah, it really bothered me how that worked out, because seemingly he should have been somewhere, but then all of a sudden he randomly appears after everything has happened. Like with Clara meeting Mary and all that. So yeah, that annoyed me a lot because it just seemed far too convenient, aka lazy writing. So yeah, I mean, other things could have been done, but just the way that was portrayed, it annoyed me, to say the least. But moving on, it is time to talk about my track of the episode. And like I mentioned before, the music in this episode, especially when it came to the singing, was quite good. There were some tracks that were fairly generic, your typical Doctor Who, this is what's going on in the episode kind of feel. But the one song, the one track that really just grasped me was the one that is listed on the soundtrack as the long song, with the little girl Mary singing her part and then the chorus coming in behind her. Oh, that song is just gorgeous. It is absolutely beautiful. And if for some reason you haven't watched this episode, I highly recommend you listen to this track. I'll link to it here on screen and in the description down below. It is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, if someone didn't like this episode, I can only assume that they must have liked this track, because it's just that gorgeous. Again, in my opinion, but you know, let me know what you all think. And from there brings me to the quote of the episode. And it's a fairly long one, but I feel like it is extremely appropriate, and I'm going to do my best to give it the best reading that I can, even though I usually leave longer ones like this aside. But this is the speech that the Doctor gives to the god, to the parasite. Okay then, that's what I'll do. I will tell you a story. Can you hear them? All these people who lived in terror of you and your judgment. All these people whose ancestors devoted themselves, sacrificed themselves to you. Can you hear them singing, "Oh, you like to think you're a god. You're not a god, you're a parasite, eaten out with jealousy and envy and longing for the lives of others. You feed on them, on the memory of love and loss and birth and death and joy and sorrow. So, come on then, take mine. Take my memories. But I hope you've got a big appetite, because I've lived a long life and I've seen a few things. I walked away from the last great time war. I marked the passing of the Time Lords. I saw the birth of the universe, and I watched as time ran out, moment by moment, until nothing remained. No time, no space, just me. I walked in universes where the laws of physics were devised by the mind of a madman. I've watched universes freeze and creations burn. I have seen things you wouldn't believe. I have lost things you will never understand. And I know things, secrets that must never be told, and knowledge that must never be spoken. Knowledge that will make parasite gods blaze. So come on then! Take it! Take it all, baby! Have it! You have it all! Got a little bit dramatic there. Sorry if I kind of spiked the sound. But yes, that entire speech, amazing! It is definitely one of the best monologues, one of the best quotes I think I've seen in the entire show so far. I mean, there are some great ones that are right along with this, but this, easily top 3. The way I feel right now, possibly number 1. I mean, I can't say for sure, but oh, it was just such a good monologue. So well done. And the emotion that Matt Smith put into that. Like, I had to rewind because I thought I saw a tear, but was just like, oh no, maybe it's just the lighting. Like, he pulled off a tear, like he crying during this monologue. It was absolutely phenomenal, both in the performance and just the writing in general. Great, great quote. Definitely the line of the episode, possibly the quote of the season. It's hard to say. But yeah. Alright, So, I'm going to get into my expanding my theory a little bit in a second, but first, as always, please do everyone let me know some of your favorite parts of this episode, some of your annoyances, which it seems like some people have some very strong negative feelings, so, you know, don't break out into any fights, obviously, as always, but, you know, be respectful and, you know, discuss some of the positives and negatives you felt about this episode. And if you're one of those that really hates the episode, try and come up with some positives. I mean, I'm sure you may already, but try and come up with some positives just to kind of, you know, spin a positive light on it. I think that would be, you know, a good thing to do. But all right. Oh, and of course, your favorite quotes if this one was not the quote of the episode for you. All right. Now, as for my theory, which I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm not exactly expanding, but sort of modifying it. So the modification to my theory is that this Clara, the Clara that is the current companion, is the original Clara, and the others are clones or copies of her in some form. I can't say why, but just while I was watching this episode, I definitely got the impression that she is the original. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to expand that theory as it goes along, but there you have it for the time being. And now for my question of the episode. And it was one thing that kind of bugged me. It's not an annoyance by any means, but it was a thing that I found a bit curious. Is that, will Clara ever travel to multiple places with a doctor at once? Or will it always be adventure, back home, adventure, back home? Because normally, when the companions first take off with the doctor, they're with him for at least 2 episodes, or a few adventures at a time before they finally go home. So yeah, I'm curious to find out whether or not that's the case, or if she just always returns back to home base, so to speak. So, without going into too much detail, if there is an answer to that, I would appreciate it, but obviously avoid spoilers, as, you know, I don't want to have any major details ruined for me. But coming up next, we're going to be getting into the episode Cold War, which brings me to my announcement that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and it is this. This is going to be the last Discovering Doctor Who, don't panic, the last Discovering Doctor Who for probably at least a week. And it's because I'm going to have to take some time off for the move, for the process of getting out of the house we're currently renting, getting everything moved in here, getting everything set up, getting the electricity switched over, getting the internet turned on here. So yeah, there's just a whole lot to do, and regardless of whether it's a quick process or not, I just think it would be best to take at least a week off. Now, there will still be another episode of The Last Dalek going up on Friday, and possibly the next Friday as well, because I should be able to get those uploaded way ahead of time and, you know, basically get the ball rolling with that. But I tend to record these the day before I upload them, so yeah, just, again, I think it's in the best, you know, it's in my best interest to just wait until everything is set up and until I proceed with any further Discovering Doctor Who episodes. I am definitely open to any communication you might want to have. If you want to send me emails or send me messages, feel free. Go back to some of the old Doctor Who episodes. If you notice I might have missed your comments, you know, I'll possibly have a little extra time to go back and comment on ones that I forgot, unless, you know, it just completely goes over my head. But I will do my best. And also, I think this episode may not be coming out until Thursday because of just everything I have to do right now, but I do have a little something extra that will be coming up the day before this video. It'll be sort of a little discussion. I'll link to it right here, and obviously I'll be mentioning that the Discovering Doctor Who will be coming out on Thursday, which is the day that this came out. I'm talking too much. Alright everyone, as always, thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Doctor Who. As always, thank you so much for coming along for this journey. It's been amazing. I've enjoyed reading your comments. Again, as always, even if I can't reply to them for one reason or another, I really do appreciate all of you. You're all amazing, and yeah, until possibly 2 weeks from now, or however long it takes, I'll see you all next time on the next Discovering Doctor Who for Cold War. And until then, Alonzi!